Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 26 of The Agency Way, a weekly blab series focused on helping marketers learn from subject matter experts within a marketing agency and beyond. Today, I'm very excited because we've got a subject matter expert within the agency here who's named Jack. Jack, what's up, man?
Oh, not much. Just getting excited for my first blab today.
Nice. Awesome. Jack, why don't you, since you're relatively new to Room 214, I'd love for you to go ahead and spend a little bit of time and just tell our audience about your background.
Okay, so I had kind of started my own business doing some essentially freelance web design a couple of years back and made about 24 sites, not sure how many. But did that for about 2 years and sold that off and worked with the fella I sold it off to, and recently went our separate ways. And now I'm here at Room 214 and bringing in some more web design experience and just general WordPress knowledge, really.
Nice. And you're actually part of Room 214's traffic team, which has a leading focus on SEO, online advertising, the wonderful world of marketing automation, more recently for Room 214, migrating from Marketo to HubSpot. So I feel like as far as just being well-rounded, you've got some great chops in these other areas that I know you spend a lot of time during the day working on.
Right. Yeah, no, it's nice having the SEO side and the web design side because commonly those two sides don't really speak to each other and sometimes don't translate over well. So it's nice to be able to design and build with that SEO knowledge. So then you're not playing catch up and adapting. Once you finish up building a website, you can have that kind of knowledge and expertise right from the jump. Yeah,
no doubt. Well, today's topic is near and dear to me just because I really, I started building websites in the 90s, back when, there was no mobile version.
Right.
There actually was responsive, believe it or not. You could, I'm getting pretty geeky here, but you could say, table width equals 100%.
Right.
That was the way to, figure it out for different screen sizes. But of course, nothing like what it is today. And when we started Room 214 in 2004, we were just starting to work with a new platform called WordPress. And we were setting up blogs for people, and it was either really the choice for us was either movable type or WordPress. And so, we dabbled a little bit with the both of them. And what's funny looking back is that we actually ended up using movable type more often because we had to pay for it. And it gave us the perception that, and it wasn't a lot, by the way, it was a pretty cheap license, but it gave us the perception that it was a platform that was going to be supported and around for longer.
Right.
And now you look at the world and it's like, I don't know, I've heard things like 80% of the world is built on WordPress in terms of the websites out there.
Right.
And so it's just like, wow.
Who knew? Who knew people would like something free better?
Yeah. Hey, it seems kind of counterintuitive. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess free wins, huh?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, especially when, when it's opened up so that other people can come in and build, and it's not just up to, the particular company or the organization. And WordPress has an interesting evolution with that, just in terms of the whole open source movement in general, how they've been a part of that. So pretty cool. And here we are today talking about WordPress. So all that to say, Jack, there's such a wide range of things we can be covering. I think whether you're an individual who's, maybe you've got your own business and you're a solopreneur or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Chances are you're either on Wix or Squarespace or who knows, and maybe you're on WordPress too. So there's that audience. And then there's a whole other audience, if you're a large company or an agency that needs to build a microsite and you just need something up there, even if it's a one pager or a really large site, you've got all these options with WordPress. And so today, my hope was just to have a conversation with you to talk about insights, your experience with WordPress, specifically, what themes or frameworks would you recommend? We can talk about plugins. I think we can get a little bit into web design, but my hope is that you just share with us what you've found in terms of being best to start off with and support over time,
Right.
and then we can go from there.
That sounds good to me.
Cool. So what say you, Jack?
So yeah, so basically, as you said, be it you're an individual or you're a freelancer making websites for clients, or a big business and just making a microsite or a landing page for whatever it may be, there's a tremendous amount of options out there for all the things that you need to get done. So really, most of the essentials are, if it is for your personal brand or for your personal business, you need a domain registration, you need hosting, email, a content management system, which is WordPress or Wix or Squarespace, as we were talking about. And I think that's it. And then, a few plugins within that to kind of make it perfect. So there's really only 4 or 5 things that you really need. And like I said, there's a tremendous amount of different options out there. So what I found over the past couple of years, working with, that group of people that we talked about there, kind of a smaller scale type of site, but even sometimes a larger scale site. I mean, as you know, we're redoing our site with exactly the things I'm going to be bringing up today. There are a few best practices that I'd like to get into. So I guess we'll start out with domain registration. The one that I'd suggest is a company called Hover. They do a pretty good job. They work really well with the hosting provider I'm going to get into. Really great support, cheap options. They also do email for just $5 a month. And it's just, the price of domain registration, which is $15 a year, depending on what you're grabbing, but usually around there if you're getting a .com or something like that. Flywheel is the hosting provider that I'd like to recommend, and I've started working with recently, and they just got added to WordPress's exclusive list of recommended hosting providers. They do all sorts of things. They have a great support team. It's a hosting provider, so let me back up. GoDaddy's one of the most well-known hosting providers, and they get the job done. You can get on there, get it for pretty cheap, usually under $5 for a month to host with them. But they kind of lack on some of the bells and whistles, and they don't focus specifically on WordPress, whereas Flywheel does. And I'm going to get into why I'm pushing WordPress. Flywheel really has a great support team for WordPress. They do automatic updates, and they'll make sure that they'll go out and do testing to make sure that this isn't going to break your site, because sometimes WordPress updates don't play well with former plugins and themes and whatnot. So they'll make sure that they're updated correctly and that you're not going to see any problems. They'll do automatic, I think it's daily updates. So should anything happen, you can have a one-click install from basically any restoration point you choose. They have free demo sites, so you can set up. So if you are doing freelancing and you'd like to push out a demo site to your client, but you don't want it live yet, that's something that can kind of mess with your SEO. You can set up a demo site, or if they have an existing site and you want to work in this other area, you can set up a demo site. It's password protected. And then when you're ready to go live, you just flip the switch, and then the billing goes over to the client, and they can have multiple collaborators hopping in there too. So that's an amazing feature, to be able to just do that with one switch and just say, now it's live. Now the client has control. In that time period, you don't have to pay for it. So then once it's live, that's when you start paying for the hosting.
That's
and
cool.
It's $15 a month. So like I said, with something like GoDaddy, you can get something cheaper, and there's definitely cheaper options than $15 a month out there. But with the peace of mind of your site's backed up, your updates are going to work, you have this tremendous support team that goes through all these plugins and sorts of things to make sure that you're not going to, they have like a sort of blacklisted type thing for their plugins for things that they know, won't work. So you don't end up screwing something up on your own, and then you're left calling GoDaddy for 45 minutes pressing buttons, getting through to somebody, and then they say, hey, we don't know WordPress, we don't necessarily care.
Right. And I think, you mentioned, and I know you're kind of talking about like good, cheap prices too.
Right.
And I know that, Room 214, we're on WordPress. We use WP Engine as our hosting provider.
That's another great one.
Yeah. And we actually have clients, that are on WP Engine as well. And again, same kind of concept as far as like backups. This is a hosting platform that specializes in WordPress and particularly at scale. And so even though we're talking about, advantages from a low pricing perspective, even for larger companies that need scale, I'm assuming Flywheel is going to be a good option as well. I know WP Engine is, and they're pretty competitive on pricing too.
Right. And I think, WP Engine, I think, was one of the first that WordPress recommended. I think there's only like a list of 4, I want to say. Can't think of what the other ones are, but, Flywheel, does kind of offer those options. You can do like $10 add-ons for CDN or SSLs if you need them, which is a really good deal. The hosting provider I was using before was charging $150 a year or so for just a SSL certificate. So this that's $30 cheaper right there. And WP Engine's great too because it's focused on WordPress, and you have all that support. You have that knowledge base, and things that might work differently if it was a different platform. It's just great to have that support because there's always something you run into, no matter how much you know about web design and all sorts of web development. There's always a problem that comes up, and it's great to be able to talk to somebody instead of just digging through forums and posting and getting yelled at because you don't know what you're doing.
Right. No doubt about it. Right.
Yeah. But also just kind of to take a step back, I feel like I got a little bit ahead of myself. You brought up Wix and Squarespace as they're great platforms to really quickly build a website. But they do have their limitations, and that is essentially what they're built around, is so you can't get into that area where you're getting too much that you don't know and have that possibility to mess something up. So that's kind of one of the things that they are better than WordPress with, because WordPress it is so open source, it is free, and you really can do anything you want with it, but that doesn't mean that you should. You can kind of back yourself into a corner, screw up a website, and get clients mad at you, whatever it may be. So that's a nice benefit of Squarespace and Wix, is you're limited from screwing up. But WordPress does have that capability. And as we were talking about, if you start out, let's say you're a solopreneur and you start out and you want to build your own website, and right now you just need the website, you need that billboard out online for people to know who you are and, provide that legitimacy. That's great. You can get that done in a day with Squarespace and Wix, and with WordPress too, with what I'm going to show you. But then down the line, you might want to be able to do a little bit more with your website. Your business might change, or your needs just change, and you kind of want to adapt some new features in there. And that's where those limitations start to become a bit more prominent, in that you don't want to be stuck in that corner again. And with WordPress, you really can do a lot of that stuff. So what I want to show you, everybody, here is a framework with WordPress, with the hosting provider and domain registration provider that I brought up, to really easily mimic essentially what Squarespace and Wix can do, but then be able to, once you know a little bit more, if you hit that level that you need to add something more to your site. So that's essentially my big push for WordPress. I respect what Squarespace and Wix are doing, but I think that with very little knowledge or a lot of knowledge, you can really do something amazing with WordPress in the same amount of effort.
So yeah, then before you jump into what you're going to jump into, because I know we wanted to touch on some tips with setup, with themes, stuff like
right.
that. I know, we're of course, how often do you hear this? We're in the middle of a redesign with our own website. And so as we're doing this, and we started, my initial preference was the Genesis framework, right? I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big Brian Clark fan, and this framework's been around for a while. And there's a lot of inherent advantages to the Genesis framework.
Right.
So I thought we were going to go down that path. And I could still go down that path, by the way. But then guys like you in the agency have a stronger opinion and good reason for it. And so why don't you share a little bit about kind of, the solution, the theme, the framework? I guess framework's a more accurate way to say it, that you've landed on and why. And then I know you're going to get into some demo stuff too.
Right. Yeah. So the framework it's called Divi. It's made by a company called Elegant Themes, who's been around for many years. They were making some pretty amazing looking WordPress themes, but they were all geared towards, so here's a theme that's geared towards restaurants. Here's a theme that's geared towards marketing agencies. Here's a theme that's geared towards lawyers, whatever it may be. They had about 70, I think, or so themes. And then a couple of years ago, they took a crack at building something that everybody really liked the design. That's what really got them on board. But then they wanted to make something that was more of a framework. So those themes are good. And there's a lot of WordPress themes out there. And that's one of the things that I was kind of talking about with the Genesis framework, is that you have the framework, but then you have a theme on top of it. And one of the things is, again, it's the limitations. I don't like limitations. I think we've got to that point. So you don't want a theme that is essentially plug and play. So, an example that I brought up is, even say one of the Elegant themes, or one of the Genesis themes that's geared towards, the one we're going to get into for Give Hope. We had a theme there that was geared towards charities, and it was really well designed. It looked great, had a lot of the things that we wanted. A donations page, events pages, all those things. But when we went to go set that up, what happens with those kind of plug and play themes is you got to fill out the way they expect a charity to be set up. So Give Hope doesn't run exactly the same as this theoretical theme believes charities should run. So something like, I remember meeting with you and we wanted to change how it would show, I think it was the location for an event. And we just didn't want that in there. And in order to get that out of there, we would have had to dive into the PHP and find that line of code and change it and build a child theme while we're at it and do all sorts of stuff, as opposed to just saying, no, I don't want it to tell it where this location is. I just don't want that to appear. So one of those problems is that there's all these things and you have to do all this workaround in order to get certain elements to not show up or be moved a little bit here and there. So that's what the framework of Divi tried to tackle is, here's this great design. We're still all about the great design, but you can set it up whatever way you want. So, and they have, it's basically a drag and drop builder, and they have some suggested templates that you can use, but even those you can then adapt to whatever you want. So I went in and with Give Hope, and I don't think I was working with Kate on it, and I don't think I had told you or James Thorpe about it, but we had changed the theme on you. And again, just to prove how well Divi is, because I don't think either of you had noticed.
No.
But to do those things, Kate and I were, bending over backwards trying to figure out. We just don't want it to say United States in this area, and it was gonna take too much work, and it was gonna be diving into code, and neither of us are super experienced in that, and that's just too much work. So we went with the Divi theme, and we replicated almost exactly what the theme was that we were originally using in the way that it looked. And some of the things that we liked about that, it had this overlay donation pop-ups, and the way the events had these countdowns. We went in and did almost the exact same thing, but it took us a fraction of the time. And, you know, with just a little bit of that design experience, you're not banging your head on the table, because I don't want that to show up with, you know, a line down the side. I want it to be, you know, just completely blank, and I don't have to dive into code because somebody says that this is how a charity should be set up.
Right. Right. All right. Well, you got some show and tell too, right?
I do. So we'll hop into that. What do I click the purple again, right?
Yeah. You share your screen. All right. Here it comes. Wait for it. Wait for it.
Go down the rabbit hole here and share. There we go. So we'll hop over to Give Hope Global is a site that we're working on here. And this is, I believe, still in staging, right? Yeah. So WordPress login, here's another nice new thing at Divi. They're about to announce Divi 3.0, which is going to be pretty tremendous from what they're telling me, but we'll see. But they have developed this new fancy login page, which is nice. Just wanted to show that off. So we'll just hop in here.
That's cool.
So here's the WordPress dashboard. I don't know how many people out there are familiar with this, but it's pretty straightforward. If you know it, you know it. With Divi, there's a handful of options here that they have where we can customize the kind of theme itself. So you can kind of set some certain elements here. You put the logo on the site and how you want the header to display, if you want it fixed to scroll down with you or not. Just some real general things. You'll see these with a lot of themes. But again, you know, something that you might not see with other themes is just this. You know, we don't have a Twitter page or something, so we don't want it to show the Twitter icon. So you can not put in a Twitter link in some instances, but you can't get rid of the icon. So then you just have an empty link, and it's all sorts of hassle. So just the freedom to be able to do what you want is really what we want to showcase here.
That's so interesting to me, right? You see a theme that you like, you know, you're shopping for WordPress themes because you want to build a website, a microsite, whatever. You see that, oh, cool, there's social sharing plugin features, right? There's a little bird
Right.
for Twitter. There's an F for Facebook. It never would occur to a number of people that if you did not want that in the theme, getting rid of it is really difficult.
Yeah, you got to call up somebody that knows code and get a developer. And I mean, this is a flip of a switch versus a 2 or 3 day long ordeal if you're not confident in how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, it is something that you just wouldn't think of. And you know, one of the things, you know, that we had discussed over this using over the Genesis framework and the themes that we had picked for that is, let's just use those themes for inspiration. There's a lot of WordPress themes out there. Go out there and look at them. You know, whatever your business is, go search themes that are made specifically for that. Use that for inspiration. Use Divi as the framework, but then use that theme. And, you know, copy elements that you like and try to mimic it as best you can. And this will be far easier than using the theme itself because, well, you'll see. So let's make a new page. How about that? So one of the nice things here is they do have templates within this framework that you can automatically apply. So all we do is we'll just call this blab page. Once it catches up to me here. And we're going to use the Divi Builder. So this is really all it is. You have your sections, your rows, and your columns that then you fill with modules. So we'll show you here. You get to pick all these different column sizes, all different variations. We'll just do a full width thing here.
And of course, this is all built-in mobile responsive, right?
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, it does a great job with mobile responsiveness, and we'll see in the settings that you can really make that its own thing. So I was using Divi for about 2 or 3 years now, and with each, I think it's really finally at a point that I'd suggest it to other people. At first, it was really bare bones, but I was using a lot of CSS stuff for it, going in and making a style sheet and making things the way that you wanted it to. But now they've adapted to having a lot of that stuff that you do in CSS, like I said, I want this to be 3 pixels instead of 4 pixels. How do I do that? I got to go write code. I got to go figure out what CSS even means, and all sorts of stuff. So now it's just simple, really good drag and drop features. So let's just put in a button here, and we'll just say, I don't know, what should we say here? We'll just make it, we'll do Google, and the button text will be go to Google. And it's just this, we'll just go into this module. I see we're running out of time here, but you get all sorts of different things, and just design wise as to how you want it to display. And just from that, you get quite a bit. It displays in a really great format, but if you do want to change things, you can go into these advanced design settings, and you can change the defaults to be different colors. You want different animations on what happens when you hover over this button, all sorts of things. And this is what really saves a tremendous amount of time. And one of the things that you'll fall into with other themes or Squarespace or Wix is, we want you using this font, we want you using this size, which is fine. But if you want a little bit more customization and you want to make it your own, you can go in and do that with ease. And we'll just do a little preview here of what this looks like. And as you can see up here, you can see also what it will look like on a tablet and mobile. We'll wait till it loads here. So, it's a blank page. So, that's all it takes to make a button. But something like with the Give Hope site, I think we wanted to add a button onto when these events start. And we wouldn't have been able to do that with the theme that we were using because that wasn't how they believed that charity should be set up, which is fine. But, it's just, you can't adapt everything perfectly. So that's all it takes to add a button. This isn't going to be much different on mobile and tablets, but you can see there. And really one of the last things I want to show you here is, if you're not super great at design and you don't know how you want to lay it out, and you do like that these other templates do set things, or these other themes do set things up exactly the way you want it, they have that option right here. So they have these predefined layouts that you can load into it. And as you can see, right up at the top here, they have different types of home pages depending on what kind of thing you need. So if it's a corporate thing, or if it's a shop, or just a portfolio for, say, an artist trying to sell their work. So we'll look at that. As you can see, it pulls in, this is what it can all build out to, but you're not stuck to that. That can be a starting point. That can be an ending point. You can say, that's good. I'm going to go through and update. Well, let's look at what this looks like live, but I'm going to go through and add the content that I need in order to make it my own. But then you can still go in and change, as you saw through the settings within each one of these modules and rows, you can change widths and paddings and margins and gutters and colors and fonts and all sorts of things. But as you can see right from the get-go, it's pretty dang good looking. We don't have any images in there, but as you can see, you can kind of see where they'd pop up. And these are all built-in modules that these are just what they look like as their defaults. So you can really get something going there. I often just use for the contact page. For a lot of sites, it's pretty much the same. So that's one of the options that in this library is, I want a contact page. And you can just easily add that in there. Grids for, again, if you have a portfolio, you can have an entire page that's just a grid of images, and it just displays beautifully. If you have the chance, I'll share the link here, so then you guys can check out the theme site itself, which really does a really good job of showing the demo for it, and something that I reference very, very regularly, the demo site for this framework, to just kind of get some inspiration and get some ideas as to how you can use this and bend it to your will.
Very cool. So if, and just so our audience has a good gauge, obviously you're really proficient at this, and just in terms of your experience, like, you mentioned PHP and getting into the code and stuff like that. I mean, how often are you even having to do that as a result of using Divi as your framework?
So I always build a child theme, and everybody will recommend that. That's a little bit of a learning curve to figure that out, but once you do it, you'll be happy. Really, the way Divi's been updating lately, there's kind of not a need for it. The idea there is if you make those changes to PHP files or CSS, when you update that theme or when you update WordPress, you'll lose those changes. So a child theme just essentially points to the actual theme itself, and then you can add files to that and do whatever you want, and they'll stay there because you made it. So there's not an update sent out by the developer or anything like that. So like I said, when Divi first came out, I spent a lot of time in the style sheet and a lot of time in certain PHP files in order to make sure that it displayed the way that I wanted things to. And again, it's great out of the box. I'm just picky, and I don't know why people would pay me if I just did something that they could do at home. So I got to make it a little bit my own. But really, lately with this site, we didn't use a child theme. I don't believe, and there's in that first screen that I showed you there, where I was turning on, enable, and disable that Twitter icon. Down at the bottom, there's a CSS box. So that really kind of defeats the purpose of needing a child theme. So if there is something, so for instance,
explain what you mean. Why is that a good thing?
So for instance, this logo, by default, it showed up all within the white space here, but it had to be a lot smaller when we had it kind of crammed up into that white space, and the logo just didn't translate super well, and it's a nice logo and we wanted it to display more prominently. So I looked up some CSS code in order to get it to overlap like this and kind of show a little bit better, and it'll scroll down and resize a little bit. So in order to do that, it was just some CSS code. So we could hop down into that, where was it here? Well, I'll kind of click there as we're talking here, but you can hop down into the options of Divi itself and add that code, and that'll help because it'll do the same thing as the child theme, because then when we update it, we won't lose everything. So it's just down here at the bottom. So in those instances where there are limitations for something like that, there wasn't a default thing for Divi that we could add in something to make that logo overlay the way we wanted it to. So in that instance, we did have to dive in here and do a little bit of custom coding. So that's where that comes in. I think there's just a few spots. As you can see, this is all the custom code that we did for the whole site.
For the whole site. And just so our viewers can see, maybe show us some of the features. If you go back to the site, some of the cool features, even just, I mean, the site looks great. And to know that you can, I think the trips feature is pretty cool too.
Oh yeah, let's go to that. So here we have a spot for some donations. You can see the way the sidebars can set up pretty good. We click over to trips here. But yeah, here's one of the things that we were talking about. That would be a countdown. They do a lot of mission trips, so you have kind of a countdown. You can get people excited. The apply now will drop you down to an application that we built for them. And then if you want to read a little bit more, this is something kind of a toggle open, something that's not necessary to have super prominent, but you do want to give people that option to read something, so it can kind of hide it and make the site a bit more streamlined like that.
So Jack, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay.
So one of the things I want to point out is that you're pointing out very elegant designs, like things that are very simple and not crowded with text and images.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know you're talking about the ease of use, but I think you're also talking about sort of a design aesthetic and how important that is. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Right. Yeah. So that's one of the things that, just like I said, right out of the box, Divi's a pretty amazing looking design. And that's how, and you use the word elegant, the name of the company is Elegant Themes. That's how they got started, is really as a design company designing these themes. It's tremendously important. One of the nice things about their updates is that they do stay up to date with the way web design looks. Jason, I'm sure that when you started so long ago, the design of websites was not the same as it is now, but it was what looked good then isn't going to still look good in a couple of years. So they do a really good job of kind of showing you, this is kind of where the design is going. So you don't have to be a web design expert. You don't have to be a graphic artist or something like that and have education behind this and be reading all this material. It can help, but one of the things that they do here is they really help you out right from the start of, here's the way that the styles are going these days. And you can then adapt that and change it to whatever you want, but you can really build something that is relevant to today's web world, which changes a lot. It's always changing, and they do a really good job of making sure that you stay within that good design, essentially elegant design.
Cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording, so this will be watchable for people. I've put the link in elegantthemes.com, and I think we can talk. There's plenty more to talk about. WordPress plugins, for example, a little bit about what you'd recommend there. So actually, since I did bring that up, and there will be people that actually watch this recording, let's talk real quickly about some of the plugins that you recommend, and then I can pause the recording. And if anybody wants to jump in, they can do it.
Absolutely.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry for the interruption. Jonathan Brook here is asking, do you think the lifetime version is a worthwhile purchase, or would you stick with annual? And I'll just let you know, I personally, on behalf of the agency, just purchased the lifetime version. And so I looked at that question, it was probably just a few days ago, and decided to go with the lifetime, but you might have an opinion on that as well. Yeah,
I remember us talking about that. I think the lifetime, I honestly don't know why they have that on there. I think that's a steal. So go ahead and buy that. If you make two sites, it's worth it. And anything beyond that. I purchased the lifetime thing about 3 years ago, and that gives you access to all of their themes. So if you do still want to use a traditional theme, you can do that. When I started out, they didn't have Divi, and I was using their traditional themes, and they're all tremendous. Great source of great knowledge base for support on that. One of the best blogs I've ever seen from Elegant Themes too, and they keep pushing out new plugins, they keep pushing out new updates, and they've never asked me for another dollar. One time they screwed up and told me that I didn't have my lifetime access anymore, but I shot them an email and they got that sorted out. But you get all these plugins, all these themes, all the updates. Definitely worth that lifetime access, because I think it's $250. And the yearly access, if I remember correctly, is maybe like 80 or 79 or something like that. It pays for itself almost immediately, especially if you're making more than one site. If you're making one site, maybe the yearly would be fine. But if you're making one site that you're going to have for years, then the lifetime's perfect, because you're going to get those updates, and you're going to get the new themes and all the updates to Divi and all their new plugins, and it's definitely worth it. It's far more than just this theme.
I'll tell you what, man, if I started, I think about how I started my business building websites in the 90s. If I started today, oh my gosh, whole different ball game. I mean, Come on, right? I barely even need to wait till if.
Yeah, like I said, with that Give Hope site, that was probably the least I had to get into CSS. And it just keeps becoming more and more as they keep pushing more out to this theme. I think we're really going to see this as a major player in the next couple of years. It already is giving us a run for its money, which is a great framework as well. But the way that they're going and the support that they're getting is just tremendous.
Cool. So Jack, 4 minutes. Talk a little bit about plugins.
4 minutes for plugins. So the good story I like telling about that was I had a a client that had, I believe it was 78 plugins on their website. And about a month or so into working on their website, the whole thing crashed. And wouldn't you know it, they'd like to blame me and the 2 plugins that I recommended using. I found out that their site was screwed months before I even showed up. But if they're watching right now, I'm sure they'll be pretty pissed at me. Anyways, don't have 78 plugins. There's no need for that. If you're familiar with WordPress, you know why. If not, there's a lot of plugins for WordPress. It's open source. It's free. A lot of the plugins are free. A lot of the free ones are great. A lot more aren't. One of the things you can do is you can just check it out and see, okay, this hasn't been updated in 6 years. It only has 12 downloads. This might not be super good. The problem is it creates a risk for your site. It's another good thing to bring back to Flywheel. They have a blacklisted list of plugins not to use. So don't do that. Use a couple. I think I maxed out, the most plugins I've used on a site was 6. And I'm trying to kind of bring that back down, to tell you the truth. Elegant Themes, another reason you should buy that, lifetime access to it. They've got some good plugins. I believe 2 of them are being used on this site. Bloom is one. That's what we see here with the subscription. That's a newsletter sign up, and it connects to maybe 24 different newsletter providers, MailChimp, FeedBurner, MadMimi, all sorts of things. And again, goes with the great design. Easy. They'll do screen pop-ups and times triggered delays, all sorts of things. That's if you need newsletters. Subscription. Monarch is another good one. I'll see if I can get an example here of Monarch in action. That's for social sharing. That's, again, another Elegant Themes plugin. You can have, let's see if that's showing up down here. That's what gets us these. And then once we dive into one of these blog posts, you can have social sharing things show up here on the left. There we go.
So you're using a plugin for the follow us on Facebook and Twitter buttons.
Right. And then they can pop up here too, and you can hide them, and they can, you can have it. This has a lot of design options. You can have it show the count. You can have 15 different social media networks here, whatever it may be. And again, that's just if you need it. If you need social sharing, this is something that we wanted to have it on. We're going to add a few more here. Then, you know, we talked about SEO at the start of this conversation. Yoast SEO is by far the best thing that you can ever get. If there's one plugin you should get, it's that plugin. It's really easy to use. They got a tremendous knowledge base online and a lot of really good information and a great blog to, before you know it, you become an expert in SEO, just kind of following them and reading up on why you should be filling out these certain areas. I think we might have it on this site probably. Oh, this is just staging, so we don't have SEO on this. But yeah, those are 3. Really, I think the site that had 6, one of the other ones that I used to suggest were, there was a backup one and one that did a good job of caching the site. So it really improved site speed. Flywheel does that. So there's no need for those anymore. And oh, one more, WP Smush, which does, it'll shrink your images down, and it'll also strip all the unnecessary information. So basically what that means is I take a picture with my camera or just my phone. It has this information of where I was, what the output was, and I don't know much about photography, but there's all this information that can be read by computers, and you can, see how this picture was taken, which is totally unnecessary to show that information on a website. So it just kind of bogs down. It'll make a 5 megapixel or 5 megabyte picture down to, under a meg. And that'll really improve your site speed. It'll also shrink it down so you're not putting up 50,000 pixel images on a computer screen that only goes 1,000 pixels wide. So yeah, just to recap, Yoast and WP Smush are definitely my 2 favorites. And then Bloom and Monarch, or, if you need something for MailChimp integration or whatever it may be, there's a lot of them out there. Contact forms we use. I know Contact Form 7 is a good one. Gravity Forms is a good one. Just make sure you do your research is really what it comes down to. Read the plugin page on WordPress. Make sure that it's been updated. Go check if other people have used it. But don't try to download 15 different plugins to do one little task that you want done on your site. Don't be that client that I had.
Good advice. And then WordFence is another comment here, is a great plugin as well. So for security purposes. Cool. Appreciate that. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording because we definitely have gone long today, which is all good. And if anybody else wants to continue the conversation after I hit the pause button, great. So Jack, really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank
to
you,
talk
Jack.
about elegant themes, Divi, recommendations on plugins, and then just even giving us the demo is great to be able to see that. So, hey everybody, thanks for joining us. Please join us every Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Mountain Time for another episode of The Agency Way, where we tap marketing experts inside of an agency and beyond. If you're interested in giving feedback, even want to be a part of the show, you can get a hold of me. Twitter's a good avenue, / Jason Cormier, at Jason Cormier, and I will answer you. And so again, thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Jack.